Welcome to Pavements, webinars for the pavement community. Today we're briefly going to cover asphalt treated cold recycled pavement as discussed in NCHRP report 960. The main question behind this research project was how to assess quality of recycled pavement layers. In order to address this question, they explored three materials: full depth reclamation, or FDR, cold in place recycling, or CIR, and cold central plant recycling, or CCPR. They looked at these three materials with asphalt emulsion and foamed asphalt, and with and without Portland cement in the mix design. They found from a survey that the most common tests currently run are simply moisture content and density. However, these two properties are not tied strongly to long-term performance. Therefore, they took a step back and explored multiple properties and tests associated with those properties. So the properties they explored included density, stiffness, penetration resistance, deformation resistance, shear resistance and raveling resistance, and moisture level. And in order to explore these properties, for the density, they looked at the mass of the dry material divided by the slab volume. For the stiffness, they looked at the soil stiffness gauge and the lightweight deflectometer. For penetration resistance, they looked at the dynamic cone penetrometer. For deformation resistance, they looked at the Marshall hammer. For the shear resistance, they looked at the long pin shear test. For the raveling resistance, they looked at the short pin shear test. And for the moisture, they looked at the electromagnetic moisture probe. Now it's worth noting that the long pin shear test and the short pin shear test were two tests that were developed specifically during this project. The meat of the report revolved around Phase 2 and Phase 3. In Phase 2, they did extensive laboratory testing, so they collected material from multiple projects across both the United States and Canada, and they produced samples in the lab. And in total, they had 18 combinations of FDR, CIR, CCPR, with asphalt emulsion and asphalt foam in both with and without Portland cement. And they ran all of the tests that we showed on the previous slide on this material. Then in Phase 3, they went out in the field and they did some field testing with these devices, and they looked at a total of 9 combinations of field sites with FDR, CIR, and CCPR, again with asphalt emulsion, asphalt foam, and with and without Portland cement. And they measured the density, the stiffness, the penetration, the shear, and the raveling. After a ruggedness study, they recommended to collect the number of blows and the torque value from two tests, the long pin shear test and the short pin raveling test. And the long pin shear test gives you a number for the time to place the surface layer, and the short pin raveling test gives you a number for the time to return to traffic on the cold recycled layer. So this was just a brief overview of NCHRP report 960. If you're interested in learning more, here is a full citation, which is also available in the comment section below.